This is a book about the legendary IRA photographer Tom Wodrich, also known as Tom Woods. You know, I met Tom in March of 2024, and it was through his pictures that I met him. Of course, we'd been recording podcasts, recording a lot of the era of the pictures that he had taken, and I found him on the IRA Project Facebook page. So I was recording these stories, and we were creating reels from these stories, those short videos that we put up, and I needed pictures to narrate or to go along with the narration of the stories. So I reached out to Tom, sent him an instant message on Facebook. He immediately responded back, and that quickly moved into a conversation on the phone. Wasn't but a couple minutes into our conversation that I knew I needed to record with Tom. So we recorded that podcast, and that came out, I think, in April of 2024. And it's called Behind the Lens, Tom Wodrich's Journey as a 3 times IRA Rodeo News Photographer of the Year. And that's our episode number 71. And we spoke almost weekly since then. And I learned so much about Tom. I learned about his art, how he got started. I learned of his love of rodeo. He was born and raised in Chicago and had no background in the Western lifestyle. But it was so apparent of his love of his rodeo friends, and it were these friends that got him out to the rodeo for the first time. I believe it was in 1977. And his pictures added to this story of the era that we were recording, of these cowboys and cowgirls. And imagine if we wouldn't have had the photography of World War II. How would the story have been told? Imagine rodeo in general without photography. And then try to imagine, if you can, IRA rodeo without the photography of Tom Wodrich. So I recorded with Tom for an episode that we released on Christmas last year about an article that I had found in the January issue of the Rodeo News entitled Tom Woods, Photographer of the Decade. And on that front cover, that championship issue, is, of course, Gene Maynard in the Pontiac Silverdome. That was the rodeo picture of the year for the Rodeo News. And I got to say, my conversation and my relationship with Tom has inspired me. His love of the arts has inspired me to do this episode using video, to step out of my comfort zone, to try something new. And you know, I'm so blessed to, number one, have started this podcast because I've met so many incredible people. And it's through these conversations that my relationships with so many people have started and grown. You know, I met Tom in April of 2024, and I will tell you, I have known him my entire life. A few weeks before Tom's passing, he and I discussed his pictures and what to do with them. Marty Martins was part of the conversation, and it was agreed that I would get them, and I would try to do my best to preserve them and put them out into the world. And there are thousands that he had digitized. I drove to Jacksonville, met his wonderful partner, Beverly, had a wonderful conversation, a wonderful afternoon with her, and I brought his pictures back, both the computer that housed these thousands of digitized pictures that he had already converted from the slides, and probably 2,000, 3,000 slides that are yet to be digitized. So we're going to figure that all out. So what to do with all these pictures? And I was talking with my friend Eric about the pictures. about the artistry of Tom Wodrich, and he suggested a coffee table book. And I hadn't thought about coffee table books in a long, long time. So how in this day and age do you put out a book? And I got to thinking, why not create a multimedia coffee table book that could be shared and his art be put out into the world? If I were creating a book, I'd get to create the captions for the pictures, tell the story behind the pictures. And one of the things I picked up while I was in Jacksonville is a whole bunch of rodeo news magazines that Tom had so carefully preserved. So I've got the results of the rodeos that he shot. I've got the stories of the committees and what was going on at that time in the IRA and in the world. So if we think of a coffee table book, consider this the introduction or preface page. And there needs to be a cover for this book. And there's only one. Tom and I discussed this picture a number of times, shot in black and white, which is such a beautiful medium. If there's words to describe a story and we get to use our imagination, and that's a good thing, then there are pictures that are taken that are in color, and that's a good thing. But there's something about the power of black and white, the simplicity, the clarity, the bareness of it all. And I'm sitting here looking at this picture. It's one of my favorite pictures. And what has stood out for me about Tom and his art, not only the great shots of the great cowboys and cowgirls in competition, that great Gene Maynard picture in the Pontiac Silverdome, but what has stood out for me are the pictures of the people. I've got several of his pictures on my wall here, and the vast majority are pictures of people. He had such a perspective of such things. He knew how to capture the groups. He knew how to capture the individuals. So this is the coffee table book. I think we're simply going to call it The Art of Tom Wodrich. I hope you enjoy.